It was officially announced today by the estate of Paul Allen that the Seattle Seahawks are going to be going up for sale. Now, there's a few things to note about this in particular. One, it's the estate of Paul Allen. Paul Allen, having passed away in 2018, essentially gave control of the Seattle Seahawks from an ownership standpoint to the entire estate, but the person who has been most involved is Jody Allen, Paul Allen's sister. There's been rumors for the past few years, and more recently there was rumors of a fine given to the Seattle Seahawks and the ownership group of the Seattle Seahawks of $5 million due to the fact that since this was an estate who was in ownership of this franchise, there was no one considerable owner, and for that reason there was rumors of a fine, and there was rumors this year that really got the fans of that flame really came about during the Super Bowl run, and especially at the Super Bowl, of the Seahawks possibly and now officially being up for sale after the Super Bowl. I think the first thing to look at is really just how much the Allens, especially Paul Allen up until 2018 and more recently Jody Allen from that point till now, how successful this ownership group has been with just the Seattle Seahawks. This group owned the Portland Trail Blazers as well, and the Blazers were sold last summer for a little over $4 billion to a new ownership group. Just the success and the level of success and the level of reliable success, I guess you would call it, that this franchise, the Seattle Seahawks, has had since the Allens took over. And the Allens they aren't a real reason. They probably are the reason that the Seattle Seahawks are even the Seattle Seahawks in the first place. Before Paul Allen purchased the franchise, the Seahawks were in real danger of being moved out of Seattle. And that's kind of where I want to take this to now, is that I think they are in real danger of moving out of Seattle now. The Seahawks as a team right now are possibly one of the best options in history of a team being up for sale. They obviously are coming off of a Super Bowl win. They obviously have one of the best teams in the NFL, one of the best defenses over the past decade. And they just at this point, compared to expansion teams in the past, compared to teams like, you think back most recently, you have a team like the Brooklyn Nets, who were in New Jersey until new ownership took over and moved them to Brooklyn. You have teams like the New Orleans Hornets, who were in Charlotte. And just in general, I think this Seahawks team being up for sale, it's going to give a lot of suitors, because this is potentially another Super Bowl team next year. And with young players like Jackson Smith and Jigba, with a quarterback in place like Sam Darnold, with a really good, really young defense that has multiple franchise cornerstones, and a head coach who obviously knows what he's doing and is considered one of the better ones in the NFL, especially after a Super Bowl win. And to see that this is where the Seahawks ultimately are going to be, I think this is bad for the league. I think this is bad for the NFL. I think this is bad for sports. Because I don't think the Allens really want to sell the Seattle Seahawks. And even if they did, I think they would rather, since 1997, this has kind of been a family business. Paul Allen was one of the best owners in professional sports up until the time of his passing. And I think him passing it to Jody Allen and the estate of Paul Allen, they have been one of the best ownership groups in sports. And now that they are basically, due to, fine language of what it takes to be an owner in the NFL, because they don't have one designated person, they're basically being forced to sell the team. And they basically were fined, whether you believe that rumor or not, They basically were fined due to the fact that they don't have one designated person. And if this leads to the Seattle Seahawks, they're up for sale now, obviously. They're probably going to get a record setting purchase by whoever decides to buy the franchise. And with other things going on in Seattle and in the state of Washington, it already was difficult for the Seattle Seahawks to be able to attain free agents due to taxes and due to other issues in Seattle and again throughout the state of Washington, a state that I live in. These issues are getting highlighted more because these billionaires who are going to be buying the Seahawks could possibly look at the idea of moving Seattle out of Washington state. And I think if that's really the outcome that comes from this, the NFL needs to kind of re-look into what their rules are. Because, again, I think the Seattle Seahawks, as a franchise, they've done everything right. They've done things the right way. And now it just feels like the reward for all of their work as a franchise and as an organization, it's going to go away. And the ultimate losers obviously would be the city of Seattle and all of their fans. The next closest team, if the Seattle Seahawks move out of Washington, depending on where they would move, they obviously wouldn't move to Idaho. They wouldn't move to Oregon, more than likely. They're probably going to move somewhere like maybe California. They're going to move somewhere maybe, maybe like a state like Utah. Regardless of where they move, it's a terrible move for the NFL to see that happen. And in my opinion, this is one of the worst things that happened to the league in a while, just off of the principle of what's happening. I really hope whoever buys this team keeps the team in Seattle. I really hope they keep the team in the state of Washington. But I mean, you can look up articles as to why a owner would possibly move this team out. There's been rumors about Steve Ballmer, who owns the Clippers right now, him being a potential name to look out for in terms of buying the Seattle Seahawks. So I would almost guarantee that if that happens, it's going to mean one of two things. Either Ballmer is going to be the leading cog in moving the Clippers up into Washington State, or he's going to be a guy hoping that the Seattle Seahawks move down to California. And obviously, if you're a Seattle fan, you want the first of those two options to happen, but there's a good chance that that's not what's going to happen. That's going to be it for this video. I'm planning on having a free agency guide for somebody up tonight. I don't want to give away who it is. But if you have thoughts about this sale of the Seahawks, make sure you let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.